It's certainly not for everyone, but this right here is unquestionably the most interesting EV you can buy in the US today. Meet the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N, the South Korean automaker's very first high-performance electric vehicle. This hard-hitting hatchback is designed to maximize driver engagement while delivering exceptional performance both on-road and around a track. To achieve all that, the Ioniq 5N is graced with a dizzying list of unique features, and it has loads of clever engineering, all of which is designed to maximize your fun. For real, this car is more effervescent than a vinegar spill at a baking soda factory. But before I get to the meat and potatoes enhancements this car has received over other Ioniq 5s, let's take a quick tour of the exterior because as you can see, there's a lot going on here. And the front of the N, the face is much more aggressive and angular than other versions of the Ioniq 5. This sort of mustache-like applique that runs the width of the front end is also slotted. It's vented, undoubtedly to help with airflow and cooling because this is a high-performance car. Moving lower, you can see the bumper is trimmed in black, and then down below on the bumper, we also have some orange trim, something we will see elsewhere on this vehicle. Moving along to the side here, the Ioniq 5N rolls on, frankly, beautiful 21-inch wheels. I think these are really quite attractive, and they are wrapped in Pirelli summer tires that should provide plenty of grip, though be aware these things have a tread wear rating, if you can see it, of just 280, which means if you're driving this car in anger, if you're driving it the way engineers intended, you're probably going to be burning through tires pretty quickly, so make sure you budget accordingly. Moving further rearward, we've got more black trim and orange accents. It looks very nice. There's a little vent here in the fender flare at the rear, undoubtedly to help with aerodynamics. And then, of course, if you are wondering, I absolutely love this paint color. I think it looks absolutely fantastic on the Ioniq 5N. It's called Performance Blue Matte. And it's only $1,000, so if you're gonna get one of these cars, I highly recommend you go for this beautiful blue. And then moving further rearward, you can see this car does have a roof spoiler here with sort of a triangular chimsel. This is the center high-mounted stop lamp, so other drivers can see, of course, when you do hit the brakes. We also have a rear windshield wiper, which is great, so you can see all of the other vehicles that you have outrun, perhaps even law enforcement, although you know, maybe you don't want to do that if they light it up. You should really probably just stop. Beyond that, we've got some more black accents on the bumper here and orange trim to tie everything together. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention a few of the dimensional changes that this car has received. It sits about 0.79 inches lower. The body is roughly 2 inches wider, courtesy of those fatter tires. And then the overall length has been increased by 3.2 inches, largely because of that rear diffuser. Of course, there are plenty of changes you cannot see. Engineers have stiffened the body in white. That's the vehicle's fundamental structure. You see, they've added 42 additional welds and nearly 7 feet of extra structural adhesive. And no, that is not white glue. It's a special mucilaginous substance that really helps tie everything together. Engineers also reinforced the battery and motor mounting points. They made the front and rear subframes more rigid. They reinforced the drive axles because this car has a lot of torque. They also strengthened the steering system and quickened the ratio. And of course, engineers made improvements to the Ioniq 5N's thermal management by increasing the cooling area, adding additional motor cooling, and they even included a battery chiller. The Ioniq 5N is also fitted with Hyundai's most powerful braking system ever. Up front, we have 15 3/4-inch rotors that are clamped by meaty 4-piston calipers. At the rear, you will find 14.2-inch discs. This car also has special ducting to help keep those rotors cool when you are driving the car hard, which helps, of course, reduce brake fade. But enough of that. There's plenty to talk about inside the Ioniq 5 as well, but I do need some help getting up. Come on, guys. Help me up. I'm stuck. Come on. Now that's all well and good, but what really sets this car apart from every other EV out there is the laundry list of N-specific features it comes with. And one of those is called N-brake regen that provides up to 0.6 Gs of deceleration when you lift off the pedal. And of course that's great for putting energy back into the battery pack, but it's also great for preserving the friction brakes, because when you are driving this car on a track, you don't want brake fade. That's really bad, and N-brake regen can help reduce the effects of that. Additionally, we have N battery preconditioning that can get the pack up to the appropriate temperature to deliver the best performance possible. There's also N race mode that has two different settings, endurance and sprint. The former actually reduces output to help keep temperatures in check so that you can have more fun doing hot laps, while the latter prioritizes more power up front for rapid acceleration. Next up, we have N pedal that helps with vehicle weight transfer to help improve the car's turn-in responsiveness. And then of course there's the N drift optimizer, which can help you get sideways and maintain that desired slip angle. It even incorporates a simulated clutch kick function to really help the car rotate. Next up is N torque distribution, which helps you allocate twist front to rear, and there are actually 11 different settings, so you can really dial this thing in exactly how you want it. This feature also includes an ELSD at the back and electronic limited slip differential. And then we have N Grin Boost, which you can pull up with a button right here on the steering wheel. This gives you a 40 horsepower increase for up to 10 seconds. Beyond that, we have N Launch Control that automatically engages N Grin Boost, and it helps you get off the line as quickly as possible. And it even includes 3 driver selectable traction settings, so if you're trying to take off on a well-prepared surface or perhaps even snow and ice, you can dial it in exactly how you want it to get you off the line as quickly as possible. And then we have N Active Sound Plus that provides simulated propulsion noises as you're driving this nearly silent EV. It pumps those sounds through the car's 10-speaker sound system. We have 8 emitters inside, and of course 2 additional speakers on the outside of this vehicle. And there are even 3 different sound profiles that you, the driver, can choose from. And finally, the most interesting feature is called NE Shift that actually simulates an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, and it even allows you to run through the gears using these paddles up here on the steering wheel. It's absolutely remarkable, it's totally unique, and we'll get to a little bit more about that feature here in just a minute. This car's cabin builds on the already excellent interior that you get in lesser Ioniq 5s. The build quality is absolutely superb. Everything is just rock solid, and the assembly quality is, as far as I can tell, perfect. The materials used here are all of very good quality. The buttons and switches are excellent. We have 2 beautiful displays up on the dashboard, and even the software that runs on this system is pretty fantastic as well. As for unique features, we have an N-branded steering wheel right in front of me with a very meaty grip, and of course this also has some unique buttons. This car also comes with special sill trim. We have unique pedal covers. There's a special center console as well. Unlike other Ioniq 5s, this one is fixed. It does not slide fore and aft. Plus, it has padding on the sides, so you can really brace your leg against it when you're driving this car aggressively. Now, you also get high-performance front bucket seats. These things are heated and ventilated. You also have a heated steering wheel. I neglected to mention that just a moment ago. But these chairs are fairly comfortable. They're very firm, though there's a ramp up at the back of the lower cushion, right where your tailbone is, and I do find that a little bit fatiguing. Still, I fit in these very well. They hug me nicely, though I do have the build of, I don't know, a malnourished toddler. If you're any larger than me, you're probably not going to be very comfortable in these seats. But despite the incredible performance this Hyundai offers, it is still remarkably practical. Behind that second row seat, you get just about 26 cubic feet of space, but if you fold the backrests down, that number grows to about 59 cubes, which is a surprising amount for what is a relatively small vehicle. But enough about all of that. We've got to take this thing for a spin and then talk specs. to really appreciate what this car can do, you've got to drive it on a racetrack or autocross course. Now today we're just focusing on street performance because honestly, that's where Ioniq 5N drivers are going to use their vehicles probably like 98% of the time. Now I have driven this car on a track before, and that video should be published, so click the link above to check that out when you get a chance. But anyway, the Ioniq 5N is an absolute giant slayer. This thing has standard all-wheel drive, which gets you 601 horsepower and 545 pound-feet of torque. But when you engage the N-Grin boost mode, it ups those figures to 641 ponies and 568 pound-feet of torque, which is enough to get you from 0 to 60 in an absolutely explosive 3 1/4 seconds. The acceleration is absolutely incredible. Even when you're just driving this car normally, it is seriously, seriously quick. As for top speed, this thing maxes out at 162 miles per hour. Another N upgrade is the battery. Lesser Ioniq 5s have a 77.4 kilowatt hour pack, but this one clocks in at 84 kilowatt hours, which of course is a very nice upgrade, and that gets you a decent 221 miles of EPA estimated range, which paradoxically is a very good figure and also not quite enough. We always like to see at least 300 miles of range if possible, but also 221 ain't too shabby for a car with this much performance and of course tires that are about this wide. As for DC fast charging performance, that battery tops out at 238 kilowatts, which is enough to get you from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes, just like other eGMP-based cars. Setting this Hyundai apart from other EVs is incredibly sharp steering. It's quick and nimble, and it practically gives the Ioniq 5N go-kart-like handling. It's really quite impressive. You throw this thing into a turn, you do seem to get a little bit of body roll, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it can help build driver confidence. It lets you know, it communicates sort of the handling limits of the vehicle nicely so that you don't push it too hard and unfortunately crash. That's a really bad thing. You don't want to do that. As for suspension, it's electronically controlled. The ride is always quite firm, but also very, very refined. And there is surprisingly a noticeable difference when you switch between driving modes or adjust the dampers on the center screen here, which is something I always appreciate. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but the Ioniq 5N does offer various driving sounds. There are 3 different ones to choose from. I've programmed the first N button here on the steering wheel to bring that up. So if I press it, we're starting in ignition, which is the sound that's designed to mimic an internal combustion engine. If I roll on the throttle there, you can hear it sort of does sound like a 4-cylinder engine. If I press it again, we can cycle over to evolution, which is more of an EV sound. It's more of a humming buzz to it, sort of. If I get on that, you can hear it does get louder, again, mimicking an internal combustion engine. Then if I press the button once more, we bring up supersonic, which is a little bit quieter at first, but it's definitely more of a jet engine feel to that one. These are quite loud and they're a little bit gimmicky. They're not my favorite thing, so honestly, the best setting for me is just turning all of that off. One of this car's coolest features, though, is called N-E-Shift. It is super, super clever. I've got that mapped to the other steering wheel button here, and if I press that, you can see it brings up those simulated engine sounds again. But what it allows me to do is shift through the gears, just like I would an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. And I can drop down gears to get simulated engine braking. It's blipping the throttle to do that, which is crazy. I can also floor the accelerator and hit a rev limiter just like you would in a combustion engine. You can see those gear changes are quite violent. You really feel them. But this is all like software and wizardry. There's no, obviously, combustion engine, no gears to run through. But they've done a remarkably good job simulating a transmission and an engine. I mean, most people probably wouldn't notice the difference, and it really does add an extra layer of amusement to the Ioniq 5. Not that it really needed it. This car is a lot of fun, but this is something kind of neat to play around with. The downside to this and all those other functions I mentioned earlier is confusion. This is not a car you can just jump in and immediately figure out. A lot of the controls are very deep, and some of them are frankly pretty Byzantine. Now, as for those two N-branded buttons on the tiller here that I mentioned a moment ago, they are customizable, but it's not obvious how you do that. You'll get behind the wheel here, you'll start pushing buttons, and you'll have no idea what's happening or why. To customize these, you've got to go into the setup menu and then hit buttons. After you do that, it's pretty easy to figure out, and you can set each button to do a different function. You can start a lap timer, engage the N Active Sound Plus mode, turn on NE shift, launch control, etc. There's quite a long list of things that you can do, but again, it's not immediately obvious what these buttons do. On the right steering wheel spoke, however, we've got the N-Grin Boost button, which is quite intuitive. You press that, you get 10 seconds of enhanced output for maximum performance. Opposite that on the left spoke is the drive mode selector. Push that, you can put it in sport. There's eco mode as well to improve your range, though it does dramatically dull the accelerator pedal response. And then, of course, there's normal, which delivers, I don't know, the normalest driving experience of all. That's what I've been using most of this time. Now, I know it's not the focus of this feature, but just a very quick word about how the Ioniq 5N feels on a track. I drove one of these very briefly around Road America, which is about 4 miles in length, and I'll tell you, this car is quick and agile. It feels like a proper performance machine. Of course, it's an EV, but it doesn't necessarily feel like one, which honestly is a remarkable, remarkable achievement. This thing is a lot of fun. But anyway, you know the drill. At this point, let's recap this car's strengths and weaknesses and then talk about pricing. This car offers incredible driving dynamics. The acceleration is absolutely bonkers. The N has amenities you simply cannot get on any other electric vehicle. The DC fast charging performance is stellar. This car feels like quality. Seriously, it's rock solid. While not great, the range is still pretty good for the performance offered. And since this is still an Ioniq 5, the N is plenty versatile. As for downsides, they are incredibly few. This Hyundai's exterior styling may be a bit much. The controls are, at first glance, very confusing, and those front seats will be too restrictive for many drivers. So, what does all of this electric performance cost? Well, our Ioniq 5N tester here buzzed the checkout register for $68,685, including $1,375 in destination fees, which, all things considered, for the speed and features this car offers, it's not a bad price. As for options, our tester here has just two, $1,000 for the matte paint job and $210 for carpeted floor mats. The 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N offers incredible performance, and it comes with a laundry list of unique features. As I mentioned earlier, this really is the most interesting electric vehicle available in the US today. And when it comes to engagement and fun, it's probably the best EV I have ever driven. For something completely different than the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, check out my comprehensive first drive review of the 2024 Chevy Silverado EV by clicking right over here.